and together over the past decade, we have helped to change laws, stop jail expansions, actively engage our local district attorney, and conduct police research like the one we are about to see.
Tonight, we are going to hear from Safe Return community leaders, report out on the research and findings of the report. I would like to introduce Kibibi to talk about why we are here today.
Hello, my name is Kibibi Columbus, and I am a community leader here with Safe Return Project. We are here today because incarceration rates in Contra Costa are rising towards women, young girls, and gender non-conforming individuals. Instead of providing support and services for trauma, we are arresting women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals. Our report shows where our government and elected officials are failing at preventing and further allowing exploitation of trauma with no real support for rehabilitation and returning to the community post-incarceration. Oh Lord.
Okay.
Incarceration, excuse me. Thank you for attending our event. Together as a community, we can take a stand for a better future and community. Together we can demand our policy makers and elect officials, as well as all stakeholders, do better. Back to Tiki.
Here are our ground rules. Please keep your mic on mute, take care of yourself, go to the restroom, drink water, do whatever you need to do, or, to be comfortable. Please be polite on the chat. Please visit our website, donate to our campaign at safereturnprj.org, and follow us on social media at Safe Return Team. Thank you. And now, Mika.
Also, real quick, we want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Lift Up Contra Costa Action, Family Justice Center, Mass Liberation, Young Women's Freedom Center, Rise Center, Rubicon Programs, Yanima Healing Circle, and Supportive Services. Thank you again. We appreciate everyone's support, and back to a day for a quick acknowledgement.
Thank you, Rika. We also would like to acknowledge the student debate team from San Ramon that were very dedicated and fully engaged with us on this research project. Thank you to Tristan Shaughnessy, Kevin Kumaravel, Ria Bibladish, and Loria Soon. Thank you, Tiki and Mika. And now I would like to introduce to you all the founding member and executive director of the Safe Return Project, Timisha Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're really excited about tonight. It has been a long journey for the Safe Return Project. We are 10 years old. Safe Return turned 10 years old in October. And we're really excited about this gender justice work. We have been waiting to do this work for a very long time. As an executive director and co-founder of this project and a formerly incarcerated convicted woman and mother myself, I've always thought to myself, why aren't we focusing on women and young girls in reentry and ending the trauma to prison pipeline, preventing arrest and incarceration of women and young girls in our county, but not just our county, but nationally. We started this work in 2016 with a small group of formerly incarcerated convicted women and young girls, asking ourselves a lot of questions around how did we end up in the criminal legal system. I also had an opportunity for over a year to visit women in Chowchilla and do a lot of work around healing with the Inside Prison Project and other folks. And it really just gave me an insight into what is happening in our communities. Every time I visited that prison and I was able to leave freely and come home, it was a long drive. I just thought to myself, how could our society and our communities fail our women and young girls and our non-gender conforming folks so poorly? How can you face so much trauma and still survive? I used to think every time I left that I give them all the respect that I possibly could give them, because most of their stories what I heard from them, I would not have been able to survive. But they are. They are surviving. And they're surviving in conditions where it lack resources. Women's prisons are some of the most underserved and under-resourced prisons in the country. You have organizations beating down doors to get into men's prisons. The lines are long to provide those services, and women do not have services in prison, in jails, and in our community. So I'm hoping that what we get to see tonight is just our preliminary findings from our research, and what we've been able to take a look at just here in our little community of Contra Costa, and see how we can do better by our women, our young girls, and non-gender conforming folks, so that we can end the trauma to prison pipeline and quit arresting trauma here in Contra Costa County. So I want to again thank everybody who participated. Want to thank our sponsors, and thank everybody who is here today.
Thank you, Timisha. At this time, we would like to acknowledge the elected officials in the room. If you are here, please sign in the chat so we can acknowledge you. But first, let me go ahead and acknowledge and thank Council Member of Pittsburgh, Chanel Scouts Preston, for being here, and also Representative from Supervisor of Federal Glover's Office, Lynn Reichart. Thank you for being here. And pass it on to Mika.
Thank you, Ade. Ade is a community organizer with Safe Return, and Shayla is a senior community organizer with Safe Return Project. They will present our research findings now.
All right, thank you, Mika. So we're gonna go ahead and get into our findings. Thank you all again for joining our event today. This is our virtual report launch event, Arresting Trauma Participatory Action Research. So in 2016, Safe Return Project started investigating the impact of criminalization and incarceration on women and young girls. The goal of this project is to access social conditions that this populations face in community that leads to incarceration, and how criminalization of women and young girls correlates with trauma. Trauma in these communities, they come from the trauma of being criminalized, and how disenfranchisement and lack of gender-specific resources added to this cycle. Our research includes a 5-city law enforcement arrest data review from 2009 to 2019, the intersection of 5 participatory action research projects, conditions of reentry in East County with 42 respondents in 132 questions, our youth impacted by criminalization and over-policing, which we have 32 respondents with 120 questions, and our trauma and incarceration, women and young girls and non-binary individuals, currently at 103 respondents and 68 questions with 98 possible responses. We conducted focus groups and did service evaluations. It also includes our literature review, which we looked at state and national impacts.
We also, between the gender justice, between 1980 and 2017, the number of incarcerated women increased by more than 750%, rising from the total of 26,378 in the 80s to 225,060 by 2017. This is a result of more expansive law enforcement efforts, stiffer drug sentencing laws, and post-conviction barriers to reentry that uniquely affect women. The female incarcerated population stands nearly 8 times higher than in the 1980s. More than 60% of women in state prisons have a child under the age of 18. The source from the Sentencing Project.
And here we're going to talk about arresting trauma. A recent survey by the Department of Justice found that at least 7% of incarcerated women reported being sexually abused in a 1-year period. And the perpetrators typically get off scot-free. In fact, even in cases where the abuse, even in cases where the abuse by guards was substantiated, nearly half of the perpetrators face no legal action. Worse still, according to a 2014 Justice Department study, 15% of staff abusers were allowed to keep their jobs. The number of women being put into local jails has skyrocketed in recent decades, 14-fold since 1970. The vast majority, which is 82%, are held for nonviolent charges. More than 85% had experienced sexual violence before entering jail, according to the August report by the Vera Institute of Justice. 2/3 of the women in jail are of color, and the majority of that population is also low income. In 2012, the Department of Justice finalized the Prison Rape Elimination Act standards, which mandate that prisons, jails, and youth facilities provide a way for inmates to report sexual abuse to an outside independent entity. Under the PREA, all incarcerated people must be given information about their rights and how to get help if they are assaulted.
Contra Costa County arrest data from 2009-18 shows that adult females in the year of 2014 has the highest number for felonies, which is 2,495 arrests. The following year, 2015, shows the highest for misdemeanor arrests, which is 4,022. Juvenile females' highest crimes were property crimes and violent crimes, and so with the same numbers throughout the whole chart. In 2019, probation data shows that young girls, juveniles, there were 87 arrests, 21 in Central and 35 arrests in East. Women and adults were 571 arrests for West County, 116 arrests in Central County, and 190 arrests in East County. Out of the county, 50 of them were homeless.
Here are some of our previous research findings. So we did an East County Truth on Coming Home survey, and the results are one of the biggest challenges upon release is housing. Find a secure, stable place to stay focused on other responsibilities and minimizing stress. The majority of the respondents stated that there are a lack of resources available to you during incarceration, and that there needs to be more resources and programs upon release to help this population be successful. A lot of the respondents wanted to have the opportunity to change their lives after incarceration, helping to reduce recidivism and become productive members of the society.
Previous research findings. Curbing the school to prison pipeline youth justice survey results show that the services that are not provided that the young people feel is needed to help them become more successful is depression and anxiety counseling, mental health, pain and trauma, suicide awareness, drug use and addiction, family therapy, and mentoring. Majority of the young people stated that they did not receive any trauma counseling support in schools or in the community. According to majority of the young girls that we surveyed, the level of education in juvenile hall is below grade level. 26 girls identified as straight, heterosexual, 5 identified as bi, and 2 identified as lesbians.
So here are some charts that we pulled from our research regarding post-criminalization resources. And I think this is something that Ade already touched on, but as you can see, one of the questions was, what kind of services do you think that should be offered specifically to the LGBTQ plus community to ensure success upon release? And as you can see here, counseling, mental health, family support, abuse and sexual abuse counseling, and then some said others. And then we also asked, what kind of services do you think were not provided and could have helped you become more successful upon release. And that's, again, depression, anxiety counseling, mental health, pain and trauma services, suicide awareness, sexual and gender education, I think that was, drug use and addiction use services, family therapy, and mentoring.
Focus groups. We conducted 8 focus groups within the African American, Latina, and white women, young girls and non-binary individuals in West, East Contra Costa County about their lived experiences before and after going to jail or prison, and discovered that they share similar experiences and challenges and have witnessed similar situations, as well as being impacted by racism because of the color of their skin. Some even have witnessed it and want to do everything in their power to change systemic racism and put more people of color in positions of power. At the time of their incarceration, those with children reflected that after going to prison, they realized that they had to change some things in their lives immediately. And others in the group referred to it as breaking the generational curse, because incarceration was experienced by 2 or more generations in their families.
So here's the landscape of Contra Costa County. There are currently 38 organizations in our system. We were able to visit 16 out of the 38 of the identified sites. 2 out of 38 serving only formerly incarcerated women and young girls. 1 was located in our local juvenile hall, and the other organization is no longer providing services in the community or the jail. 3 out of 38 were servicing all women and young girls, and 33 out of 38 are serving all genders, while 2 out of 38 providers explicitly serve non-gender conforming communities. We used a questionnaire to evaluate the sites and the services they provide. This included assessing how the environment was and if the staff were caring, welcoming, and culturally responsive.
Law enforcement data. We gathered data for 5 police departments across Contra Costa County. We requested arrest data for women and young girls with the youngest age of arrest being 12 years of age. Today, we will only be reviewing the highlights as we are still analyzing these data. We would like to thank all the departments that shared their data with us and participated in this study. Thank you very much.
The highest impacted cities, as we discovered, is Antioch, California. We analyzed data from 2015 to 2019. First, Black first, white second, and Latinx third. As you see, the city of Richmond, California data from 2018 to 2019 shows the same pattern. And I know it's pretty small here, but yeah, as it states, Blacks first, white second, and Latinx is third in arrest.
And poverty and trauma arrests by city as well. Antioch top arrests between 2015 and 2019 are bench warrants, outside warrants. For white women first, and for Black women second, were petty theft and domestic battery. With Black women, the first charge in the white women came in second. Richmond top arrests from 2018 to 2019 were loitering with intent to prostitute, battery on a spouse with the Black women first, and the Latin women coming in second for the battery of a spouse. Corporal injury to a spouse, Latinx women first, and Black women second.
Here are arresting trauma research findings. So our demographics, the age range of population surveyed was between 14 and 51 years of age. 71% of identified as Black and or African American, 78% identified as asexual white, while 15.5% identified as bisexual. 73% were unemployed and lived either near Richmond, California or Antioch, California. 100% of those surveyed had witnessed either a parent or guardian being physically abused or under the influences of drugs. 74% of 74% began to use drugs as early as 18 years of age, and 68.8% continued to use substances like alcohol and marijuana daily.
Yeah, arresting trauma research findings also. Topic 1 was for women, young girls, and non-conforming females in Contra Costa County have difficulty finding housing upon release. Around 65% of the participants were unable to get any form of long-term shelter or supportive housing after being released. Roughly 50% of the respondents could not acquire non-public housing or an apartment. Around 40% of the people are currently either homeless or in short-term shelters, and 33% of those people were homeless immediately upon release. Around 40% of the participants said that they would want to get more help with their housing situation after being released.
And topic 2, we have women, young girls, non-conforming folks in Contra Costa County do not feel like they are being rehabilitated, put in a position to successfully re-enter society upon release. 73% of people in this survey were not required to attend any type of classes during probation or parole. 84% of respondents said that they received no support after being released. 83% of people in the survey said that they did not have a support plan before release, and 57% of respondents said that they did not feel like there was a way to continue their education while incarcerated. 64% of people said that they were not tested for any conditions, physical or mental, and 66% of respondents said that they were not offered any mental health services while incarcerated.
Topic 3, women, young girls, non-binary, non-conforming folks in Contra Costa County are not housed in hospitable, prison, or jail environments. They said 42% of respondents that they did not receive feminine hygiene products. Around 50% of respondents said they were not allowed to receive visitors. 57% of answers said that conditions were poor, i.e. not hospitable to the everyday person. Before my incarceration, one said, was really wild and crazy and definitely traumatic. Resources were not available to me. I had no help at all. I did it all on my own. Some of the trauma I suffered that could have led to my incarceration was facing people around me that were close to me who got killed. I used to be around a lot of gang violence, and there was just always a lot of violence in my life. When you need someone to talk to, such as a mental health or a medical reason, there's a long waiting period, could be days or even weeks. When I get out, I plan on seeking services with finding employment, especially with my criminal record, once I get back to my community. And that is a testimony from one of our leaders inside, Nicole Dato.
And topic number 4, we often have pre-existing trauma that makes them more likely to enter the justice system. 60% of respondents said that in the past they have been physically abused. Roughly 42% of respondents said that after being physically abused, they didn't have any support to work their abuse. Of the respondents, they said that they have been physically abused. 58% of them said that they were first abused between the ages of 5 and 18. Nearly 50% of the people surveyed said that they have been sexually abused, with 51% of respondents said that one or both of their parents and or guardians were incarcerated while they were growing up.
Topic 5. Often, women, young girls, and non-conforming females in Contra Costa County often have children and do not feel like they get adequate time to interact with them while incarcerated. 81% of the participants with children said that they couldn't see their children while they were incarcerated. 82% of them said that participants have children.
So in conclusion, this means we should seriously consider a policy that always reduces prison time, not increases. We know that prisons are not safe. Jailing people recreates trauma. Not only are the women and young girls going to jail or prison experiencing trauma, but that then it manifests itself in the children or kids and then in their grandkids live by indirectly impacting the whole family unit for generations, highlighting arresting trauma, policing trauma is always self-defeating.
Thank you, Shayla and Aday. I really appreciate it. Now it's time for our testimony. I would like to introduce Mika back to the stage.
Hi, my name is Mika Herrera. I'm 19 years old. I'm about to be 20 next week. I'm excited because my last teen year. But anyways, so I hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to share my story. I first got in the criminal justice system at the age of 14. I grew up raised by my grandmother. My mother and father were in prison mostly my whole childhood. I only got to see them when I went to visit them. So I was raised by my grandmother, who also adopted my brother and my little sister. So she had a lot on her plate, raising 3 kids. That wasn't hers. So like I said, I first was in the criminal justice system at the age of 14. I really didn't have any guidance. I didn't have anyone to make me go to school. School was always an option for me. If I wanted to go, I would. If I didn't, I wasn't forced. I didn't have anybody to make me stay at home. Like I said, not being forced to go to school, I had a lot of free time on my hands. So I didn't have anyone to make me stay home and stay out of the streets. Not having a mother and father made it hard to survive at a young age. I didn't have a role model to follow footsteps of a healthy life. I grew up with a lot of emptiness due to lack of community resources for youth, and lack of mental health support, especially at a young age. I ended up incarcerated for a year in juvenile hall in our county's Girls in Motion program, which also added to my trauma due to being locked in a cell for a long period of time, and also the way the juvenile staff treated us. I never received visits, and I barely ever had contact to the outside, because my family couldn't afford the rates of the phone calls. Um, I eventually was released at the end of the year 2018 and placed back into the same community that I was in prior. Uh, Not even a month after being released from the Girls in Motion program, uh, I was back in the community with no reentry sources, just basically back to the life I was living before being incarcerated. Um, one day after my 18th birthday, I was in county jail with 4 felonies, which all fall under the California 3-strike laws. So I was in a very sticky situation the day after I turned 18. Once released from that, I was connected to Safe Return Project, through a good friend of mine and someone who's also a community organizer with Safe Return right now, Carlos Fernandez. Um, I applied for the Richard Boyd Fellowship and I was accepted. And I've been a community organizer in training for all of 2020. And I am now a graduating fellow. So thank you all for taking the time to listen to my story. And I will pass it back.
Thank you, Mika. Now we will like to introduce our keynote speaker, Jessica Nolan. Jessica Nolan is the executive director of the Young Women's Freedom Center and co-founder of Cis and Trans Women and Girls and Gender Nonconforming People. Jessica has spent the majority of her career working to develop and implement innovative programming and strategies based on the principles that those most impacted must be at the forefront of her decision-making about their own lives. Her own experiences as a young person navigating the juvenile justice system, as a single mother dealing with poverty, homelessness, and intimate partner violence, coupled with her experience in the field, propels her work to advance the field. And she was recently named a 2019-2020 Leading Edge Fellow for her work. Prior to her current role, Jessica worked for several years as a social entrepreneur and as a consultant to organizations working with women and girls and the intersections of violence, poverty, racial justice, incarceration, reentry in the workforce development. Jessica is a Bay Area native and currently lives in Oakland. Jessica Nolan, so glad you be here.
Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you all for inviting me and for doing this amazing work. Um, Mika, thank you for sharing your story with us. That means a lot. And I've been in this work for a really long time. I actually started at the Young Women's Freedom Center, formerly the Center for Young Women's Development, in 1996, as a young person that was hired out of incarceration, and being in a space with other young people who had similar experiences, who were formerly incarcerated, really changed the trajectory of my life. And um, and that was so many years ago, but even now, the research you all have done in lifting up the experiences of women and girls and gender nonconforming people in Contra Costa County, it was bringing tears to my eyes, because as directly impacted people, these are things we know, and the importance of looking at the data and sharing that to get broader understanding is so important. So thank you all for all you do. You all really inspire me, and I'm honored to be here and work more closely with you. So I mentioned I'm with the Young Women's Freedom Center. I'm also a co-founder of the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition. The Young Women's Freedom Center has been around for 27 years this February, and we started back in the early 90s in San Francisco with the idea that young women and girls who have lived and worked on the streets, who have been pushed to the margins, who've been incarcerated, who've grown up in foster care, and have had to really find our way for ourselves, are actually the ones that we really need to deeply invest in if we want to build a different society, and if we want to build a world where everyone can have opportunities and love. And so we've been doing that work for a really long time. And more recently, we've expanded across the state. So we're now in Alameda, LA, San Jose, or Santa Clara County. And we started the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition because when we look around the country and we say who is actually focused on investing in these folks as leaders, we didn't see too many places. And so the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, which now has 700 members from around the state, who are all focused on, building collective power to create a different world and to end the criminalization and incarceration of women and girls and gender nonconforming people in California. So that's a little bit about our work, and what was so telling to me and sad and almost made me cry during the research is that these are the stories, and this is the truth of what's happening. And when I hear about what the folks wanted from the focus groups and from the research, what rose up for me is opportunities for connection, for my basic human rights as a human to be met, for healing, and for support. And I think this is so important because what we do know is that criminalization and incarceration do not, nor have they ever created those things. I think that we are expanding to Contra Costa County. We're really excited to partner with Safe Return Project, and I think there's a lot of work to do. For the past 8 to 10 years, we've been working with girls in navigating the juvenile justice system in Contra Costa County. I remember driving from San Francisco to Martinez to show up to court, and also having to bring with us lawyers to say, hey, it's not actually legal to keep this girl incarcerated one more day. I think what you lift up through this report and all the work that Safe Return Project has done over the years is that communities, the women, do have the answers. We just haven't been listening correctly. And that if we could move resources to community, if we could actually imagine what it would look like for people to have housing, where they could be safe, where they could develop self-determined plans for their own lives, if people had access to well-paid employment to make different decisions about their lives, had access to mental health. And one thing I wanted to lift up was mentorship. Every young person I've ever spoken with wants mentorship. And I think that that word could mean so many different things depending on who you're talking to. And what I know about Safe Return Project, and when I listen to your story, Mika, and my work with the Young Women's Freedom Center and with Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, is the importance of mentorship from and with people where you can bring your full self and bring your full experience. And because we know, and even in the data and the lit reviews, we've worked with 38,000 women and girls, transgender and gender expansive people since 1993. And the only 100% that everyone we've worked with has been directly impacted by physical and sexual violence. And so we know that it's significantly underreported. And I'm a little all over the place, but you said so many powerful things. We know as well that even with the passing of PREA, right, we know how rampant the abuse is, and how even when we have some of the most powerful women on, like in the Comment on hearings and stuff, that can you imagine what it feels like to be incarcerated, to be being abused, and knowing that you don't have people that you can trust to report it. With the passing of laws last year, we were able to see a lot of the COs who had committed violence to women that we work with in prison. And what we also know is it's those same COs who are part of the review committees who are reviewing themselves, and people weren't fired, and it wasn't called rape. And so it's really rampant. I think we need to take a much deeper look. I'm excited to partner with all of you and all of the young folks and people in this report. And I think together, elected officials, community, all of us, that we can, if we really, again, listen to our communities, imagine something different and really work to get there. So that's it. But we are hiring in Contra Costa, so we'll send that out too. And again, thank you all for your work. We're looking forward to tackling this together.
Thank you, muted.
My apologies. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica. We are about to wrap up our night. So please make a donation at our website, safereturnprj.org. Or you can sign up for our list, sign up to get exclusive Safe Return gear like our beanies, windbreakers, and shirts. Please make a donation to our organization and campaign. Ms. Adele.
Thank you. So now we'll do the call to action to our elected officials. So I'm going to go to my chat and I am going to call out on City Council member Chanel Skep Preston from Pittsburgh. Today, will you commit to working with us, the Safe Return Project, and our partners towards justice reinvestment strategies for women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals who have and are suffering from trauma in Contra Costa County? And if so, please put yes in the chat. And then the next person I call to action is going to be Representative Supervisor Federal Glover's Representative Lynn Reichart with the Office of Supervisor Federal Glover. Commit today to working with Safe Return and our partners towards justice reinvestment strategies for women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals who have and are suffering from trauma in Contra Costa County. I will expect a yes, and I will say thank you. And then I am also seeing Jill Ray from the office of Candace Anderson. Hi, Jill, welcome. I didn't acknowledge you earlier. Let me acknowledge you now. And will your office, Candace Anderson's office, will be committed to working with us, Safe Return Project, and our partners towards justice reinvestment reinvestment strategies for women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals who have and are suffering from trauma in Contra Costa County. Yes, and thank you. And I also have Lamar Thorpe, Antioch Mayor-elect. Welcome. Thank you for joining us and congratulations. Will your office or will you commit to working with us, the Safe Return Project, and our partners towards justice reinvestment strategies for women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals who have and are suffering from trauma in Contra Costa County? I expect a yes, and I'm going to go ahead and say thank you. And let me see who else we got in here for representatives. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn Reichard. Thank you, Jill Ray. And thank you for everyone who will commit to working with us and our partners in our future. And I will pass it to Shayla.
Thank you all. So now we're going to get into our community call to action. So as you know, Safe Return has a lot of things going on. And so we want to call on our community to help uplift those things. So to our community, and again, just popcorn it in the chat. It's good. We see it. It's there. Can our community commit to sharing this information, joining our organization? Like I said, we got a lot going on, so we definitely need the support. Join our committee for women, young girls, and gender nonconforming individuals. Sign up for our Richard Boyd Fellowship. I believe Evelyn has that link and she can pop that in the chat. If you have someone you want to nominate for our 12-month pretty much paid internship, go ahead and nominate someone. And then we're looking for mentors for our Credible Messenger program. Like we said, mentoring was high on the charts. As Jessica pointed out, mentoring is definitely needed. Go ahead and hit us up on our Safe Return website. And then that's all I have. And I'll turn it back over to Tiki to close us out.
And
Thank you, Shay.
let me just thank Meryl Kraft. I see a yes coming in from Pittsburgh. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you. Go ahead, Tiki.
Thank you, everybody, for your commitment. Thank you, Shayla. Thank you, Aday. We will be sending out an email regarding our next steps. Please share and take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will be sent to you shortly. If you are watching this recording, please find the link and fill out the evaluation so we may improve our program. Once again, I thank you guys for coming out, spending your time, educating us, and for your commitments. That would end our town hall.
All right.
Thank you, Tiki.
Thank you, everybody. And please,
you all so much.
bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I think I want a picture of all of us. This is nice.